The smoke alarm screamed through the house like a dying animal, and before I could even process what was happening, my daughter's hands slammed into my chest. Marlowe shoved me backward into the basement, and I watched in horror as my husband Devon tumbled down the stairs behind me. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. My own daughter had just trapped us in a burning house. I lunged for the stairs, my throat already burning from the smoke seeping under the door. Marlowe! Marlowe, open the door. My fists hammered against the wood until my knuckles split. Devon grabbed me from behind, his hand clamping over my mouth so hard I tasted blood. Stop, he hissed in my ear. Don't scream. Let her think we're trapped. I thrashed against him, but he held me tighter. The smoke was getting thicker now, curling down the stairs like gray fingers reaching for us. My lungs seized. This was it. We were going to die down here, and my daughter had locked the door. Then Devon dragged me across the basement floor, and I saw it. A section of the concrete wall was open, swinging on hidden hinges like something out of a spy movie. Behind it was darkness and the smell of damp earth. Get in, he whispered. Now. I stared at him like he'd lost his mind. What is that? Devon, what the hell is? I built it 3 months ago. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there that made my blood freeze. Not fear. Certainty. I knew this was coming, Claudette. I knew our daughter was going to try to kill us. Hey everyone, if you're already hooked by this insanity, do me a favor and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. The smoke was pouring down the stairs now, thick and black. I could hear crackling from somewhere above us. Devon pulled me toward that impossible door in the wall, and I realized this wasn't just some random fire. This wasn't an accident. My 23-year-old daughter had planned this. She had locked us in here to burn alive. And somehow, my husband had known it was coming. 3 months earlier, life was normal. Or at least, I thought it was normal. That's the thing about betrayal, isn't it? It looks like love right up until the knife goes in. My name is Claudette Morrison. I'm 51 years old, and up until that day, I thought I had the kind of life people envied. Devon and I had been married for 26 years. We owned a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood outside Nashville. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Devon worked as an electrical engineer, and I managed a small bookstore downtown that I'd inherited from my mother. Marlowe was our only child. We tried for more kids, but after 3 miscarriages, we'd poured everything we had into raising her. She was our miracle baby, born after we'd given up hope. Devon used to call her his little shadow because she followed him everywhere as a kid. She was always Daddy's girl. She'd graduated from college the previous spring with a degree in marketing, and after a few months of job hunting in other cities, she'd asked if she could move back home to save money. Of course we said yes. What parent wouldn't want their daughter close? Looking back now, I can pinpoint exactly when things started feeling wrong. It was about 6 weeks after she moved back in. Marlowe started having these long phone conversations behind closed doors. She'd get texts at dinner and her whole face would change, like someone had flipped a switch. When I asked who she was talking to, she'd just say friends from school or potential employers. Then she started having visitors. A guy would pick her up at odd hours, always waiting in his car at the end of the driveway instead of coming to the door. When I mentioned it to Devon, he just shrugged and said she was 23, she deserved privacy. But mothers know. Something in my gut kept twisting. One night, I was folding laundry in Marlowe's room while she was out, and I noticed she'd left her laptop open. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I looked. Her search history was full of weird queries. How long does it take to settle a life insurance claim? Can adult children contest a will? Average house value in Nashville suburbs. My hands started shaking. I told myself she was just curious, maybe worried about our retirement or estate planning. But then came the questions. Casual at first, slipped into normal conversation. Mom, do you and Dad have life insurance? How much? Who gets the house if something happens to you both? Did Grandma leave me anything in her will? I laughed them off, but each one landed like a tiny needle in my chest. The real terror started 2 weeks before the fire. I was looking for my heating pad because my back was killing me, and I remembered Marlo had borrowed it. I went into her room, opened her bedside drawer, and found a phone I'd never seen before. A cheap flip phone, the kind you buy with cash at a gas station. The kind people use when they don't want to be tracked. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. I opened it with trembling fingers. There were only a few text threads, all with one contact saved as C. The messages made my stomach drop through the floor. They're not going to just give you what you deserve. You know that, right? Your dad's life insurance is $400K. Your mom's is $400K. Plus the house is worth at least $600K. We could be set for life. Start fresh. Together. And then, dated just 3 days ago, they have to go. Soon. Make it look accidental. Chapter 3. I stood in Marlo's room holding that phone, and I couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in. This had to be a joke. Some sick prank. Maybe she was writing a thriller novel. Maybe it was research for a marketing project. My brain scrambled for any explanation that wasn't the obvious one. My daughter was planning to kill us. I don't remember walking to Devon's workshop in the garage, but suddenly I was there, shoving the phone in his face. He was working on some electrical project, wires and circuit boards spread across his workbench. Devon, look at this. Look at what I found in Marlo's room. He took the phone, read the messages, and I waited for him to explode. To call the police. To grab Marlo and demand answers. But Devon just set the phone down carefully, like it was made of glass. His face went completely blank. Don't confront her, he said quietly. What? I thought I'd heard him wrong. Devon, she's planning to murder us. We need to be smart. He looked at me then, and something in his eyes made me step back. Claudette, if we confront her now, she'll just deny everything. She'll say someone pranked her, or we're paranoid, or we planted the phone to frame her. We need proof. That is proof. I was practically screaming now. It's her word against ours. She could say we're trying to disinherit her, that we're making this up. Devon's voice was so calm it was terrifying. I need to make sure first. I need to know how deep this goes. Make sure? Make sure of what? How much deeper does it need to go? But even as I said it, a horrible thought crept in. What if he was right? What if we called the police and Marlo convinced them we were lying? She'd always been a good actress, even as a kid. She could cry on command. Give me 2 weeks, Devon said. Don't let her know you found the phone. Put it back exactly where it was. Act normal. Can you do that? I wanted to say no. I wanted to grab my daughter by the shoulders and shake her until she explained why she wanted us dead. But I nodded, because what else could I do? So I put the phone back, and I went downstairs, and when Marlo came home that night, I smiled and asked her how her day was. The next 2 weeks were psychological torture. Every meal with Marlo felt like dining with a stranger wearing my daughter's face. When she hugged me goodnight, I wondered if she was calculating how much longer she'd have to pretend. Devon disappeared into the basement for hours every evening, claiming he was working on a project. When I asked what project, he'd just kiss my forehead and say insurance. I started noticing things I'd missed before. The way Marlo watched us. How she'd tense up when we mentioned traveling or making plans for next year, like the idea of us having a future annoyed her. She started cooking elaborate dinners, being extra sweet, and it made my skin crawl because I knew what it meant. She was softening us up. Building an alibi. The loving daughter who would be devastated by her parents' tragic accident. Then came the night I woke up at 2 in the morning with the feeling someone was watching me. I opened my eyes and screamed. 2 figures in dark clothes and ski masks stood at the foot of our bed, completely still, just staring at us. Devon shot up beside me, and the figures vanished like smoke. We searched the whole house. Nothing. No broken windows, no open doors. You were dreaming, Devon said, but his voice shook. I wasn't dreaming. I was hysterical. They were there. Right there. But there was no evidence. No proof. And when I checked on Marlo, she was sound asleep in her bed, peaceful as an angel. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, asked me if I slept well, and I wanted to scream. Devon kept insisting I'd had a nightmare, that the stress was getting to me, and I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. That's what gaslighting does. It makes you doubt your own eyes, your own sanity. And I realized that whether Devon believed me or not, we were running out of time. 3 days after the masked figures, Devon finally told me the truth. He found me in the kitchen at midnight, staring at a cup of tea I'd made but couldn't drink. I'd barely slept in 72 hours. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every time Marlo walked into a room, my heart rate spiked. Come to the basement, Devon said. I need to show you something. I followed him down the stairs, and what I saw made me dizzy. Devon had transformed half the basement into what looked like a detective's war room. Photos pinned to a corkboard. Printed screenshots. A timeline mapped out on a whiteboard. And in the center of it all, surveillance footage playing on a laptop. I've been investigating, Devon said, and his voice cracked. Ever since you found that phone. I installed hidden cameras around the house. I hired a private investigator. Claudette, it's worse than we thought. He pulled up a chair for me and started clicking through files. Photos of Marlo with a man I'd never seen before. 30s, tattoos up both arms, cold eyes. They were at restaurants, in his car, outside a pawn shop. The PI had done a background check. His name was Curtis Hagen. 2 assault charges, 1 dropped domestic violence case, fired from 3 jobs for theft. They've been together for 8 months, Devon said. Since before she moved back home. He's the one texting her from that burner phone. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit on them. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you show me this weeks ago? Because I needed to know if it was real. Devon's eyes were red, and I realized he'd been crying. I needed to know if our daughter was really capable of this, or if this Curtis was manipulating her. I needed to understand. He pulled up more files. Financial records showing Curtis was drowning in gambling debt. Court documents from a case 2 years ago involving his ex-girlfriend's parents who died in a gas leak, ruled accidental but with some suspicious circumstances that were never fully investigated. The pieces clicked together like a nightmare puzzle. He's done this before, I whispered. I think so. Nothing was ever proven, but his ex-girlfriend inherited everything and then disappeared. The police assumed she ran off with him. Devon's jaw tightened. He's a predator, Claudette. He finds young women from wealthy families, isolates them, manipulates them, and then orchestrates their parents' deaths. So what do? We go to the police right now. With what evidence? Devon cut me off. Text messages that could be interpreted as dark jokes? Photos of them together? That's not enough for an arrest. At best, they question them. Curtis disappears. Marlo claims we're crazy, trying to control her life. And then what? We spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, waiting for them to try again. Hope everyone's still with me, because this is where it gets even crazier. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Seriously, you're going to want to see how this ends. I stared at the evidence scattered across Devon's workspace. Then what's your plan? We let them think they're winning. Devon pulled up architectural drawings of our house on the laptop. I've been building an escape route. A tunnel from the basement to the neighbor's old tool shed. It's almost finished. When they make their move, we let them think we're trapped. We record everything. We get undeniable proof. And then we put them both away for life. You want to let our daughter try to kill us? My voice came out strangled. I want to save our daughter. Devon grabbed my hands. Curtis is the puppet master here. If we stop this the right way, with clear evidence of his manipulation and coercion, Marlo might get a reduced sentence. She might get help. But if we go to the police now with circumstantial evidence, she'll protect Curtis. She'll go down with him fully. This way, we catch them in the act, and we show the courts that she was groomed by a predator. It was insane. Completely insane. But looking at all that evidence, seeing the timeline Devon had constructed, I realized he'd been planning this for weeks. My husband, the electrical engineer who approached every problem like a circuit to be solved, had built us a way out. And maybe, just maybe, a way to save Marlo from herself. When? I asked. Devon pulled up the burner phone texts he'd been intercepting. I didn't even want to know how he'd managed that. Soon. Curtis is pushing her. Telling her we're getting suspicious. Telling her it has to be this week. How will we know? I cloned the burner phone to my laptop. Every text that comes in, I see it. He squeezed my hands. I know this is terrifying. I know you want to grab Marlo and shake her awake. But we have to be patient. We have to let this play out. That night, I lay in bed next to Devon and wondered if I'd ever sleep peacefully again. Somewhere down the hall, my daughter was sleeping in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by stuffed animals and photos from high school. And she was planning how to burn me alive. The same little girl who used to crawl into our bed during thunderstorms was now counting down the days until we were dead. But here's what I didn't realize yet. The hardest part wasn't going to be surviving. It was going to be pretending nothing was wrong. The next 2 weeks, I became an actress in my own life. Every morning I made coffee and asked Marlo about her plans for the day. Every evening I cooked dinner and listened to her lie about job interviews that didn't exist. Devon and I spoke in code when she was around, discussing his basement project like it was just another home improvement. Meanwhile, Devon worked like a man possessed. Every night after Marlo went to bed, he'd disappear downstairs. I'd hear him drilling, hammering, moving concrete. He installed hidden cameras in every room except Marlo's bedroom and bathroom. He wired microphones into the smoke detectors. He even put a tracker on Curtis's car. If we're doing this, we're doing it right, he told me. When this goes to court, they won't be able to claim anything was fabricated. I helped where I could, but mostly I focused on not falling apart. The worst part was how affectionate Marlo became. She started having movie nights with us, cuddled up on the couch like she was 12 again. She baked Devon's favorite lemon bars. She asked me to teach her my mother's pot roast recipe. I want to make sure I know how to cook all the family meals, she said, smiling sweetly. You know, for when I have my own family someday. I smiled back and showed her how to season the meat, and inside I was screaming. She was collecting memories to mourn us by. She was building the narrative of the devoted daughter so devastated by her parents' tragic deaths. One night she hugged me extra tight before bed and whispered, "I love you, Mom. I don't say it enough." And I had to lock myself in the bathroom and sob into a towel because that was my baby girl, my miracle child, and she was going to murder me. Devon caught me mid-breakdown and held me. 2 more days, he whispered. The tunnel's finished. All the cameras are ready. It's almost over. What if something goes wrong? What if we don't make it out? We will. But I saw the fear in his eyes too. The surveillance Devon had set up showed us everything. Curtis visited the house twice while we were supposedly asleep, taught Marlo how to disable specific smoke detectors, showed her where to pour accelerant for maximum damage. Watching the footage made me physically ill. This man had turned my daughter into an arsonist, and she'd let him. She'd chosen him over us. But then one night, I saw something that complicated everything. Devon had gone to bed early, exhausted from finishing the tunnel. I was reviewing the day's footage when I saw Marlo, alone in her room, staring at a photo of the 3 of us from her college graduation. She was crying. Really crying, not the manipulative tears she'd shown us. She picked up her phone, started to dial, then threw it across the room. "I can't do this," she sobbed to herself. I can't. Then her burner phone buzzed. She read the text and her whole face changed. The doubt vanished. She wiped her tears, took a breath, and texted back. Whatever Curtis had written, it had pulled her back from the edge. I wanted to burst into her room right then. I wanted to show her that footage and ask her why she was letting this man control her. But Devon's plan required patience. It required letting them believe they'd won. 4 days before the fire, Devon showed me the completed escape route. The tunnel was narrow, maybe 3 feet wide, but it was solid. He'd reinforced it with wood beams and lined it with waterproof material. It stretched about 50 yards underground to our elderly neighbor's property, emerging in a tool shed that hadn't been used in years. Mr. Patterson's in a nursing home, Devon explained. His son hasn't touched this property in months. Once we're through, we'll have a clear line of sight to the house. We'll see everything. And we'll have every second recorded. And then we call the police. We show them the footage. Curtis and Marlowe get arrested on the scene, with all the evidence of what they tried to do. It sounded so simple when he said it like that. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something. That Curtis was smarter than we thought. That my daughter was more lost than we realized. 2 days before the fire, the text came through, "Tonight. House fire. They'll be asleep. No evidence." Devon and I read it together on his laptop. My legs gave out. This was real. This was actually happening. "No," Devon said, reading more. "Not tonight. Tomorrow night. Curtis is confirming details. 24 hours. We had 24 hours to prepare to let our daughter try to kill us. That last day was surreal. Marlowe made us breakfast, pancakes with strawberries, Devon's favorite. We ate together like a normal family. She asked about our plans for the week, what we wanted for Christmas this year, whether we'd thought about taking a vacation. All things she already knew we'd never do because we'd be dead. That evening, she insisted on cooking dinner. Spaghetti carbonara. She set the table with candles, put on soft music. "I just wanted one nice family dinner," she said. "We don't do this enough." We ate, and I memorized everything. The way candlelight made her hair glow auburn. The sound of her laugh when Devon told a bad joke. How young she looked when she smiled, how much she looked like my mother. I tried to reconcile this girl with the one who'd be locking us in a basement in less than 6 hours. After dinner, she hugged us both. "Thank you for everything," she said. "For always being there for me. For giving me everything." Devon's voice was thick when he answered. "We love you, sweetheart. No matter what." She went upstairs to her room. Devon and I sat on the couch, holding hands, watching the clock tick down. At 11:47 p.m., Devon's laptop pinged. Curtis's car had just pulled up 2 blocks away. At 11:53, Marlowe crept downstairs. We heard her in the kitchen, in the garage. The smell of gasoline started seeping through the vents. "It's time," Devon whispered. "Remember, no matter what happens, stay quiet. Let them think we're trapped." At 12:02 a.m., the smoke alarm started screaming, and my daughter's hands slammed into my chest. The smoke followed us into the tunnel like it was alive, clawing at our heels as Devon pulled the hidden door shut behind us. The darkness swallowed us whole. I couldn't see my own hands. Couldn't see Devon even though he was right in front of me, his fingers locked around my wrist, dragging me forward through the cramped space. "Keep moving," he gasped. "Don't stop, don't make a sound." My knees scraped against concrete. My shoulders hit the walls. The tunnel felt like a coffin, narrow and suffocating, and for a second I thought maybe this was worse than the fire. Maybe Devon had lost his mind and we were crawling to our deaths anyway. But then I heard it, muffled through layers of earth and foundation, Marlowe's voice. "It's done," she was saying, somewhere above us. "They're locked in. The fire's spreading fast." Curtis answered, but I couldn't make out his words. Just the low rumble of a man's voice, calm and satisfied. My daughter's boyfriend, the puppet master, probably admiring his handiwork. Probably already calculating how to split our life insurance money. Devon had a small flashlight now, the kind that barely gives off any glow. In its weak light, I could see the tunnel stretched ahead of us, seemingly endless. My lungs were burning from the smoke we'd inhaled, and every breath felt like swallowing glass. How long had Devon said this tunnel was? 50 yards? It felt like 50 miles. "Almost there," Devon whispered, like he could read my panic. "Just a little further, Claudette. Stay with me." I wanted to scream. I wanted to turn around and claw my way back up to that basement, burst through the door, and grab my daughter and shake her until the real Marlo came back. The Marlo who used to make me Mother's Day cards covered in glitter. The Marlo who cried when we watched sad movies together. That girl couldn't really want us dead. She couldn't. But she'd locked the door. I'd felt her hands on my chest, shoving me backward. There was no confusion there. No hesitation. My daughter had pushed me toward my death without flinching. We reached the end of the tunnel, and Devon carefully pushed open another hidden panel. Cool night air rushed in, and I'd never been so grateful to breathe in my entire life. We emerged into Mr. Patterson's old tool shed, dusty and full of cobwebs, and through the grimy window I could see our house. Flames were already licking out of the basement windows, orange and hungry. Black smoke poured into the night sky. Devon pulled out his phone, swiping frantically. "The cameras are still transmitting," he breathed. "We're getting everything." He angled the screen so I could see. Multiple camera feeds showed our house from different angles. The kitchen camera caught Marlo standing by the back door, her phone pressed to her ear. She was crying, but her voice was steady. "Yes, 911? My parents' house is on fire. I can't find them. I think they're still inside." The performance was perfect. She sounded terrified, devastated, exactly like a daughter who'd just lost everything. Curtis was in the frame too, standing behind her, and the look on his face made my blood freeze. He wasn't worried. He was excited. His eyes were bright, almost gleeful. He touched Marlo's shoulder and she leaned back into him, still fake sobbing into the phone. "Look at him," Devon said, his voice shaking with rage. "Look at that monster. He's loving this." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Within minutes, fire trucks screamed up to our house, firefighters pouring out, unrolling hoses, shouting commands. Marlo ran toward them, pointing at the house, gesturing wildly. I watched her collapse into a female firefighter's arms, watched the woman hold my daughter while she grieved. "We need to wait," Devon said. "We need them to find the bodies." Bodies. My heart stopped. What bodies? The mannequins I put in the basement, dressed in our clothes. I needed them to think we died, at least for a few minutes. He gripped his phone tighter. "When they pull those out, Marlo and Curtis's reaction will prove everything. People don't feel relief when their loved ones die, Claudette. They feel devastation. If they look relieved, even for a second, the cameras will catch it." It was brilliant and horrible at the same time. We crouched in that shed, watching our house burn, watching firefighters risk their lives to save people who weren't even there, and I felt sick. But Devon was right. This was the only way to prove what Marlo and Curtis had done. This was the only way to save our daughter from herself. 20 minutes later, firefighters emerged from the house carrying 2 body bags. My stomach lurched even though I knew they weren't real. Marlo screamed and tried to run toward them, but Curtis held her back. The camera on Devon's phone zoomed in on their faces, crystal clear despite the chaos. And there it was. Just for a heartbeat, just for one fraction of a second before Marlo buried her face in Curtis's chest, relief. Her shoulders relaxed. Her jaw unclenched. She looked at Curtis and something passed between them, something that looked almost like triumph. Curtis was even worse. He didn't even try to hide it. The corner of his mouth twitched up, just barely, and his eyes went cold and satisfied. He stroked Marlo's hair while she fake-sobbed, and he looked like a man who'd just won the lottery. "Got them," Devon whispered. "That's all we need." He stood up, and I grabbed his arm. "Wait. What are you doing?" "Finishing this." He looked at me, and his eyes were full of tears, but his voice was steel. "Stay here. When you see the police arrive, count to 30, then come out. I need to do this part alone." "Devon, no." But he was already gone, slipping out of the shed and into the shadows. I watched through the window as he circled around the crowd, staying in the darkness. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. What was he planning? What if Curtis saw him first? What if? Devon stepped into the firelight, and the entire scene froze. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Devon stood there in his smoke-stained clothes, very much alive, and the crowd of firefighters and neighbors just stared at him like he was a ghost. Then someone screamed, and chaos erupted. "Mr. Morrison." A firefighter rushed toward him. "Sir, we thought you were, how did you?" But Devon wasn't looking at the firefighters. He was looking straight at Marlo. And the expression on her face was everything we needed. Pure, undiluted horror. Not relief that her father was alive. Not joy. Just shock and fear, like her worst nightmare had just crawled out of the grave. Curtis's reaction was even better. He went white as paper, then red, then grabbed Marlo's arm so hard she gasped. "We need to leave," he hissed, loud enough for the nearest camera to pick up. "Now." "I can't just. My dad's alive, I need to." Marlo was spiraling, her carefully constructed act falling apart in real time. "Move." Curtis yanked her toward his car, but 2 police officers were already moving to intercept them. They'd arrived with the fire trucks, standard procedure for potential arson cases. That's when I stepped out of the shadows. I couldn't help it anymore. I'd counted to 30 like Devon asked, but seeing Marlo's face, seeing her torn between running to her father and running away with Curtis, broke something in me. "Marlo," I called out. She spun around, and the look she gave me will haunt me for the rest of my life. It wasn't the look of a daughter seeing her mother alive. It was the look of a criminal seeing a witness. She opened her mouth, closed it, then just started shaking her head. "No. No, 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 this isn't. You were supposed to. We were supposed to die." Devon finished for her, walking closer. His voice was calm but loud enough for everyone to hear. "Is that what you were going to say, sweetheart?" Curtis bolted. Just straight up ran for his car, shoving past a firefighter. But he didn't get 10 feet before 2 officers tackled him to the ground. He went down hard, screaming obscenities, thrashing like a trapped animal. Marlo watched Curtis get handcuffed, and something in her snapped. "This is your fault." She shrieked at us, her perfect mask completely shattered. "You drove me to this. You were going to cut me out, leave me with nothing. Curtis said you were planning to." "Planning to what?" Devon pulled out his phone, the one with all the footage. "Planning to love you, support you, give you everything we had." A female officer approached Marlo carefully, hand on her weapon. "Miss, I need you to come with me." "No." Marlo backed away. "You don't understand, they're the monsters. They faked their own deaths. They set this whole thing up to frame me." She was crying for real now, mascara streaking down her face. "I didn't want to do it. Curtis said they were toxic, that they were going to destroy my life, that this was the only way." "Marlo Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder and arson." The officer's voice was gentle but firm. "You have the right to remain silent." "I love you." Marlo screamed as they put the handcuffs on. "Mom, Dad, I love you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Curtis made me, he said you'd understand," he said. But they were already leading her to the police car. Curtis was screaming too, but his words were different. "You can't prove anything. This is entrapment. Those people are crazy, everyone knows they're paranoid." He twisted in the officer's grip, trying to look at Marlo. "Don't say anything. Don't tell them anything. They can't prove." "Actually, we can prove everything." Devon held up his phone. "Every text message. Every planning session. Every word you said tonight. We have footage from 16 different cameras, including the ones you didn't know about in the smoke detectors." Curtis's face went from red to purple. "You sick son of a, you let your own daughter try to kill you just to save her from you?" Devon stepped closer to the police car. "Yeah, I did. Because unlike you, I actually love her." They drove Marlo and Curtis away in separate cars. The crowd that had gathered, neighbors in bathrobes and firefighters taking a break, all stared at us like we were aliens. I heard whispers, "Did that really just happen? That girl tried to kill her own parents? What kind of person?" A detective approached us, a tired-looking woman in her 50s named Rodriguez. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to need you both to come to the station. We have a lot to sort through here." The next 6 hours were a blur of statements and evidence review. Devon handed over everything: the burner phone texts, the surveillance footage, the recordings from tonight, the financial records showing Curtis's debts and his history. He documented everything so thoroughly that the detectives kept exchanging looks of disbelief. "This is the most comprehensive evidence package I've ever seen for an attempted murder case," Detective Rodriguez said. "Mr. Morrison, you should have been a cop." "I just wanted to protect my family," Devon said quietly. "Even the parts that wanted to destroy us." Around dawn, we were finally allowed to leave. Our house was a burned-out shell, yellow tape everywhere, but we were alive. We stood in the driveway as the sun came up, holding hands, and I realized I was still wearing the pajamas I'd been shoved down the stairs in. "What happens now?" I asked. Devon's voice cracked. "Now we see if we can save what's left of our daughter." At the station, they told us Curtis had lawyered up immediately and wasn't talking. But Marlo had broken down within an hour. She told them everything, every detail, from the moment Curtis had first suggested the plan 8 months ago to the final text tonight. She'd implicated herself completely, and according to the detective, she'd spent most of the confession sobbing that she was sorry, that she didn't know what was wrong with her, that she'd give anything to take it back. But you can't unburn a house. You can't unlock a basement door. And you can't unplan your parents' murder. They kept Marlo in county jail while they processed the charges. Curtis went to a different facility, which was good because apparently he'd been screaming threats about what he'd do to her for betraying him. The prosecutors offered us updates every few days, and each one felt like a knife. "Your daughter's cooperating fully," the district attorney told us 2 weeks after the fire. "She's given us everything on Curtis, including information about his previous activities. We're reopening the case of his ex-girlfriend's parents. The gas leak that killed them? Marlo says Curtis bragged about rigging it." Devon and I sat across from this woman in her sterile office, and I couldn't process what I was hearing. Our daughter had spent 8 months with a serial killer. Had listened to him brag about murdering people. Had thought that was normal. Had fallen so deep into his manipulation that she'd nearly become his accomplice in another double homicide. How did this happen? I asked, but I wasn't really asking the DA. I was asking the universe. How did I miss this? How did my daughter turn into someone I don't recognize? "Mrs. Morrison," the DA said gently, "I've prosecuted a lot of these cases. Young women, usually isolated, who get involved with predatory men. It's not about bad parenting. It's about calculated psychological manipulation." But that didn't make me feel better. That just made me wonder what vulnerabilities Curtis had seen in Marlo that we'd missed. What pain or insecurity or need had he exploited? The court ordered psychological evaluations for both of them. Marlo's came back first, and reading it was like looking at an X-ray of my daughter's shattered mind. The psychiatrist described her as highly susceptible to coercive control, with underlying abandonment issues and external locus of identity. In plain English, Marlo didn't know who she was without someone telling her. She'd built her entire personality around pleasing others, and Curtis had weaponized that. "It says here she has memories of feeling overlooked in high school," Devon read from the report, his voice hollow. "That she felt we paid more attention to our careers than to her emotional needs. That she was lonely." "But we were there for everything," I protested. "Every school play, every sports game, every—" "We were there physically," Devon said. "But maybe we weren't really seeing her. Maybe we were so busy making sure she had everything materially that we didn't notice she was empty inside." The guilt was crushing. I replayed every memory, every conversation, looking for the moment we'd failed her. Was it when she was 14 and came home crying about some friend drama, and I told her to just ignore it? Was it when she was 17 and wanted to talk about feeling anxious, and Devon had said she just needed to work harder and stay busy? We'd thought we were teaching her resilience, but maybe we'd just been teaching her that her feelings didn't matter. Curtis's evaluation was different. The psychiatrist called him a sociopath with narcissistic traits, who showed no genuine remorse, and a pattern of exploiting vulnerable individuals for financial gain. He'd targeted Marlo specifically because her social media showed she was from a comfortable family and posted a lot about feeling misunderstood. He'd studied her like a predator studies prey. 3 weeks after the arrests, we got word that Marlo wanted to see us. The DA warned us we didn't have to go, that it might be emotionally damaging. But how could we not? She was still our daughter. Even after everything, she was still our miracle baby. The jail visit was nothing like TV makes it look. We sat in a small room with a guard outside, and they brought Marlo in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her wrists in handcuffs. She looked thin, fragile, like a strong wind could break her. Her hair was unwashed, her face bare of makeup. She looked 16 again, small and scared. "Mom," she whispered when she saw me, and her voice broke. "Dad." We sat across from each other at a scarred metal table. For a long time, nobody spoke. "What do you say to your daughter who tried to burn you alive?" Marlo spoke first. "I know you can't forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I'm so sorry. And I know sorry means nothing, I know it doesn't fix anything, but she choked on a sob. "I don't understand what happened to me. I don't understand how I became someone who could do that to you." "Curtis happened," Devon said flatly. "No." Marlo shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not going to blame it all on him. He manipulated me, yes. He lied to me and twisted everything and made me believe you guys were planning to abandon me. But I chose to listen to him. I chose to trust him over you. I chose to keep seeing him even when something in my gut told me he was wrong." She looked down at her handcuffed wrists. "The therapist here says I have issues with self-worth. That I've always based my value on what other people think of me. And Curtis was the first person who made me feel like I was the center of the universe. He love-bombed me, she calls it. Made me feel special and important and necessary. And when he started saying you guys didn't really love me, that you were just going through the motions of parenting, part of me wanted to believe it. Because it gave me permission to be angry, to be selfish, to take something from myself for once." "We did love you," I said, my voice breaking. "We do love you. Everything we ever did was for you. I know that now." Marlo met my eyes, and I saw real anguish there. "I know that now, and I hate myself for not knowing it then. For being so weak and stupid and desperate for validation that I almost murdered the 2 people who actually cared about me." The guard knocked on the door. 5 minutes. Marlo's breathing hitched. "There's something else I need to tell you. About the night of the fire. When I locked you in the basement and heard you banging on the door, I almost opened it. For a second, I stood there with my hand on the lock and I thought, what am I doing? But then Curtis was there, and he told me it was too late to back out, that you'd never forgive me anyway, that I had to see it through." She was sobbing now. "And I believed him. I walked away and I let you burn, and I'm going to live with that for the rest of my life." "But you're alive to live with it," Devon said. "And we're alive. And maybe that's what matters." Marlo looked at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language. "How can you even look at me? After what I did? How can you sit here and not hate me?" "Because you're our daughter," I said simply. "And love doesn't work like an on-off switch. You did a horrible, unforgivable thing. And I'm angry and hurt and traumatized. But underneath all that, you're still my baby girl. And I still want you to survive this." The guard opened the door. "Time's up." As they led Marlo away, she looked back at us. "Thank you," she said. "For staying alive. For giving me a chance to at least apologize, even if it doesn't matter. And Dad." She focused on Devon. "Thank you for knowing. For building that tunnel. You saved my life by saving yours. You saved me from becoming a murderer. I know that doesn't make sense, but thank you." The trial took 8 months to get to court. 8 months of our lives in limbo, living in a rental apartment while insurance companies investigated our suspicious fire. 8 months of therapy, both individual and couples, trying to process the trauma of knowing our child had wanted us dead. 8 months of watching Curtis's defense team try every trick in the book to paint him as the victim. They claimed Devon had entrapped them. That we'd pushed Marlowe into Curtis's arms by being controlling parents. That the tunnel proved we were paranoid and possibly delusional. That we'd manufactured the entire crisis for attention or insurance fraud. One defense lawyer actually stood up in court and suggested we'd set the fire ourselves and then framed our own daughter because we were disappointed she hadn't become successful enough. It was vile. It was absurd. But it was also strategic. Curtis's team knew the evidence against him was overwhelming, so they were trying to muddy the waters, create reasonable doubt, make the jury question everything. Marlowe's case was separate, and her lawyer took a completely different approach. She pleaded guilty immediately to attempted murder and arson. No trial, no defense, just a full confession and a plea for mercy based on Curtis's manipulation and her cooperation with prosecutors. Your Honor, Marlowe's public defender said at the plea hearing, my client is a young woman who fell prey to a predator. She's not asking to avoid consequences. She's asking for a chance at rehabilitation. The prosecutor stood up. The state acknowledges the defendant's cooperation and her genuine remorse. However, this was a planned, premeditated attempt to murder her own parents. The victims have expressed support for a reduced sentence, but the state believes 15 years is appropriate. 15 years. My daughter would be 38 when she got out. Middle-aged. Her youth gone, sacrificed to one terrible decision and 8 months of believing a monster. But then the judge spoke. Before I make my decision, I'd like to hear from the victims. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, you have the right to give an impact statement. Do you wish to do so? Devon and I had talked about this for weeks. What we would say, if we got the chance. What message we wanted to send, not just to the court, but to Marlowe. To other young people who might be vulnerable to predators like Curtis. To parents who might miss the signs we'd missed. I stood up, my legs shaking. Devon stood beside me, his hand in mine. I looked at Marlowe in her orange jumpsuit, and she looked so small, so broken. Nothing like the confident girl who'd graduated college. Nothing like the daughter we'd raised. Your Honor, I began, and my voice cracked. I took a breath. My daughter tried to kill me. She and her boyfriend planned to burn me alive in my own home, along with my husband. And I have to live with that knowledge for the rest of my life. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face when she shoved me down those stairs. I hear the lock clicking. I smell the smoke. Marlowe was crying silently, her shoulders shaking. But, I continued, I also remember the little girl who used to make me breakfast in bed on Mother's Day. The teenager who volunteered at the animal shelter every weekend. The daughter who called me crying happy tears when she got into college. That girl is still in there somewhere, buried under the manipulation and the lies and the terrible choices. I looked directly at Marlowe. What you did was evil. There's no other word for it. But I don't believe you're evil. I believe you were broken, and a predator found those broken pieces and used them to turn you into someone you weren't. Devon spoke up beside me. We're not asking the court to let our daughter off easy. She needs to face consequences. She needs to understand the weight of what she's done. But we're also asking the court to remember that she's a victim too. Not an innocent victim, not blameless, but a victim nonetheless of psychological abuse and coercion. I took a deep breath for the hardest part. Your Honor, we forgive her. The courtroom erupted in whispers. The judge banged his gavel. Marlowe's head shot up, her eyes wide with shock. We forgive you, I said again, looking at my daughter. Not because what you did is okay. Not because we're not hurt or angry. But because hate is a prison, and we're choosing not to live in one. We're choosing to believe that people can change, can heal, can become better than their worst moments. And we're choosing to give you the chance to prove us right. Marlowe was sobbing openly now. The kind of broken crying that comes from somewhere deep in the soul. I don't deserve it, she gasped. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Nobody deserves forgiveness, Devon said quietly. That's why it's called grace. The judge was silent for a long moment, looking between us and Marlowe. Finally, he spoke. In my 30 years on the bench, I've never seen anything quite like this case. The level of premeditation was chilling. But the level of manipulation the defendant experienced was also extraordinary. He looked at Marlowe. "Miss Morrison, you've been offered a plea deal of 15 years. However, given your cooperation, your genuine remorse, and the extraordinary circumstances including your parents' willingness to support your rehabilitation, I'm going to accept a modified sentence. 8 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 5, contingent on your continued therapy and good behavior." 8 years. 5 with parole. It wasn't nothing, but it also wasn't life. It was a chance. "Thank you, Your Honor," Marlowe whispered. Curtis's trial was different. Faster, harsher, more clear-cut. The evidence was overwhelming. The texts, the surveillance footage, his history, Marlowe's testimony about his manipulation tactics. His defense crumbled in days. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all counts: attempted murder, arson, conspiracy, coercion. The judge sentenced him to life without possibility of parole. When they read the sentence, Curtis finally showed real emotion. He stood up, screaming at the courtroom. "This is insane. That girl tried to kill her own parents and she gets 8 years? I get life? Where's the justice?" "The justice," the judge said coldly, "is in recognizing that you are a predator who has destroyed lives for profit. Miss Morrison made terrible choices, but she was groomed and manipulated by you. You are the architect of this horror, and you will spend the rest of your days paying for it." As they dragged Curtis out, still screaming, he locked eyes with me. There was nothing human in that gaze. Just cold calculation and rage that his plan had failed. I'd never been so grateful for my husband's paranoia, for his engineering mind, for his determination to save us all, even Marlowe, from this monster. 5 years later, I'm sitting in a courtroom again, but this time it's for Marlowe's parole hearing. Devon's beside me, his hair grayer now, both of us wearing the invisible scars of that night. Our rebuilt house stands on the same lot as the old one, but we've never slept there without nightmares. Marlowe's been a model prisoner according to all the reports. She's earned her GED, then an associate's degree through the prison education program. She's been in intensive therapy 3 times a week, working through her issues with identity, self-worth, and vulnerability to manipulation. She's led support groups for other inmates who've been victims of domestic abuse and coercion. The woman they bring into the hearing room barely resembles the girl who locked us in that basement. She's 28 now, her face older but somehow younger too, if that makes sense. The hardness is gone. The desperation to please is gone. She looks at peace, or at least on the path to it. "Ms. Morrison," the parole board chairwoman begins, "you've served 5 years of an 8-year sentence for attempted murder and arson. You're eligible for parole today. Tell us why you believe you should be released." Marlowe takes a breath. When she speaks, her voice is steady. "I don't know if I should be released. That's not my decision to make. What I can tell you is that I'm not the same person who committed those crimes. That Marlowe was lost, desperate, and willing to believe anything that made her feel important. She was so scared of being unloved that she fell for someone who told her exactly what she wanted to hear." She glances at us, then back to the board. "I spent the first year in here angry at everyone but myself. Angry at Curtis for manipulating me. Angry at my parents for building that tunnel, for surviving, for putting me here. Angry at the system. But my therapist helped me understand that anger was just another way to avoid taking responsibility." "So you take full responsibility now?" another board member asks. "Completely. Curtis manipulated me, yes. But I chose to believe him. I chose to prioritize my relationship with him over my relationship with my parents. I chose to stop thinking critically and start thinking tribally. And most importantly, I chose to cross a line that should never be crossed. I chose attempted murder." She says the words clearly, without flinching. "I can explain what led me there, but I can't excuse it. And I won't." The hearing continues for another hour. Character witnesses testify, including 3 of Marlowe's therapy group members who traveled here to speak on her behalf. Her prison therapist describes her progress as remarkable, and her self-awareness as genuine. The warden notes she's had 0 disciplinary infractions. Finally, They ask Devon and me to speak. We wrote letters to this board, Devon says, pulling out 2 envelopes, explaining why we support Marlowe's release. But I think I can sum it up simply. She tried to kill us, and we survived. That survival doesn't mean anything if we use it to keep her buried. We want our daughter back. Not the broken girl who fell prey to a predator, and not the scared girl who'd do anything for approval. We want the woman she's becoming. The one who faces what she did and chooses to be better. She'll never live with us again, I add. That boundary is necessary for all of us. But we've been doing family therapy through video calls for 3 years now. We've rebuilt trust slowly, carefully. And when she gets out, we'll be there to help her transition. We'll help her find housing, employment, continue her education. Not because we're erasing what happened, but because punishment without rehabilitation is just revenge. The board deliberates for 2 hours. When they return, the chairwoman's face is unreadable. Ms. Morrison, the board has decided to grant your parole, effective in 30 days. You'll be released under strict supervision, with mandatory therapy, community service, and regular check-ins with your parole officer. Any violation will result in immediate reincarceration for the remainder of your sentence. Do you understand? Marlowe's face crumples. Yes. Thank you. I won't let you down. 30 days later, we pick her up from prison. She walks out in donated clothes that don't quite fit, carrying a single box of her possessions, looking terrified and hopeful at the same time. We drive her to the apartment we've helped arrange, a small studio in a supervised living facility for people transitioning out of incarceration. On the way, we stop at her favorite restaurant from childhood, a little diner that makes apple pancakes. We sit in a booth, the 3 of us, and for the first time in 5 years, we're a family again. A broken, scarred, complicated family, but a family. I'm scared, Marlowe admits over her pancakes. I'm scared I'll mess up again. That I'll trust the wrong person. That I'll disappoint you. You probably will mess up, Devon says. Everyone does. The difference is, now you know what red flags to watch for. Now you know your vulnerabilities. Now you have tools to protect yourself. And you have us, I add. Not as the parents who'll solve all your problems, but as people who love you and want to see you build a real life. A life based on your actual values, not someone else's manipulation. Marlowe cries a little, but they're clean tears. Healing tears. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this right. I know I can't undo what I did, but I can choose who I become from here. That's the thing about redemption. It's not about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let the past be the only story you tell. Over the next few years, Marlowe rebuilds her life piece by piece. She gets a job at a non-profit that helps domestic violence survivors recognize manipulation tactics. She goes back to school for social work. She volunteers at a crisis hotline. She dates carefully, slowly, only after extensive therapy about her patterns. She falls and gets back up and falls again and keeps going. And us? We heal too. Devon and I learned that you can love someone and still have boundaries. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. That trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, but it will always have cracks, and that's okay. The cracks let the light in, someone once said. They show where you've survived. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't that night in the basement. The greatest act of love isn't blind trust. It's choosing courage over fear. It's building an escape route while hoping you never need it. It's forgiving someone who doesn't deserve forgiveness because you refuse to let hate define you. Curtis is still in prison, and he'll die there. He never showed remorse, never admitted what he did was wrong. He's still the same predator he always was, just caged now. That's what happens when you refuse to change, refuse to grow, refuse to take responsibility. You become trapped in your own worst self. But Marlowe? Marlowe chose differently. She chose the hard path of accountability, of therapy, of becoming someone new. And that's why, when I look at her now at 33, working at her nonprofit, leading support groups, helping other young people avoid the trap she fell into, I see hope. Not the hope that erases trauma. Not the hope that pretends everything's fine. But the hope that says, people can change. Love can survive betrayal. Families can heal, even from the worst wounds. The hardest person to save is sometimes the one trying to destroy you. But sometimes, if you're brave enough and stubborn enough and love deeply enough, you can save them from themselves. You can give them the chance to become more than their worst moment. And in doing so, you save yourself too. Because here's the final truth I learned from that night in the burning house. The greatest revenge against evil isn't cruelty. It's refusing to let evil turn you cruel. It's choosing grace when you have every right to choose rage. It's choosing to build a tunnel instead of accepting death. It's choosing to survive not for revenge, but for the possibility that tomorrow might be better than today. So to everyone watching this, if there's one thing I want you to take from our story, it's this: pay attention to the people you love. Really see them, not just the version of them you want to see. Notice when they change, when they isolate, when someone new is slowly taking over their thoughts. Because predators like Curtis exist everywhere, and they're looking for the vulnerable, the lonely, the ones desperate to feel special. And if you're someone who feels lost right now, someone who's found a person who makes you feel like the center of the universe but slowly cuts you off from everyone else, please listen to that small voice in your head that says something's wrong. That voice is your real self, trying to survive. Don't silence it for anyone, no matter how much they claim to love you. Love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't demand you choose. Love doesn't ask you to betray yourself or the people who raised you. Real love builds you up without tearing others down. 3 years ago, Marlo met someone new. A teacher at the community center where she volunteers. His name is Marcus, and the first thing she did was introduce him to us. The second thing she did was insist on couples therapy before they got serious, so she could make sure she was seeing him clearly, not through the distorted lens of her past trauma. Last month, they got engaged. And I cried, but not from sadness or fear. I cried because my daughter had learned what healthy love looks like. She'd learned to trust herself again, slowly and carefully. She'd learned that she deserves someone who enhances her life, not someone who controls it. The wedding's next spring. We're helping plan it, setting it up in the garden of our rebuilt house. The same ground where Curtis tried to end our family will now celebrate its continuation. There's poetry in that, I think. The fire tried to destroy us, but from those ashes, we grew something stronger. Devon and I are different now too. We talk more, listen better. We learned that being present isn't just about showing up physically. It's about creating space for honest emotions, even the messy ones. Especially the messy ones. We have date nights where we actually talk about how we're feeling, not just what we did that day. We see our own therapist to process the trauma, the guilt, the complicated love we have for our daughter. Some people ask me if I ever regret forgiving Marlo. If I ever wake up angry that she got a second chance when we could have died. And the truth is yes. Sometimes I do wake up angry. Sometimes I have nightmares where the tunnel doesn't exist and Devon and I burn alive while our daughter listens from the other side of the door. Sometimes I flinch when Marlo hugs me, remembering her hands shoving me backward into darkness. But those moments pass. And what remains is the knowledge that we made a choice 5 years ago in that courtroom, and we make that choice again every single day. We choose forgiveness. We choose hope. We choose to believe that our daughter is more than the worst thing she ever did. Is our family perfect now? God, no. We'll never be the carefree, innocent family we were before. That version of us died in the fire. But we're something different now. Something more honest, more resilient, more aware of how fragile and precious life is. Marlo will never be able to undo what she did. She'll carry that weight forever, and she should. But she's also learned to carry it without letting it crush her. She's learned that redemption isn't about erasing your sins. It's about letting them reshape you into someone who would never commit them again. And me? I learned that motherhood doesn't end when your child betrays you. It doesn't end when they make choices so terrible you can't comprehend them. It evolves. It becomes something harder and more complicated, but also deeper. I learned that loving someone means seeing them at their absolute worst and still choosing to see their potential for good. I think about Curtis sometimes, rotting in his cell, still convinced he's the victim. Still believing he did nothing wrong. And I'm grateful, in a twisted way, because he's proof of what happens when you refuse to change. When you let your worst impulses define you. When you see people as tools instead of humans. He could have chosen differently at any point. He could have gotten help for whatever broke inside him. But he didn't, and now he's nothing but a cautionary tale. A reminder that some people will always be predators, and we have to protect the vulnerable from them. Before I end this, I want to say something directly to anyone out there who's been manipulated, who's made terrible choices because someone twisted your mind. You are not beyond redemption. What you did was wrong, and you have to own that. But you are not forever defined by it. Marlo proved that. She walked through fire, literally and figuratively, and came out the other side as someone new. It took years of work. Years of therapy, of facing herself in the mirror, of apologizing over and over for something that can never fully be forgiven. But she did it. And if she can rebuild after trying to murder her own parents, then there's hope for anyone willing to do the work. And to the parents watching this, especially those with adult children, don't stop paying attention. Don't assume that because they're grown, they don't need you to notice the warning signs. Some of the most dangerous manipulations happen to people in their 20s and 30s, when they're supposed to be independent but are actually still figuring out who they are. If your child suddenly changes, suddenly has a new partner who slowly isolates them, suddenly starts asking about money and inheritance in ways that feel wrong, trust your gut. Start documenting. Stay present. Build your tunnel, metaphorically speaking, before you need it literally. Devon was paranoid, and his paranoia saved our lives. Sometimes paranoia is just pattern recognition. Sometimes your fear is your instinct trying to protect you. Don't ignore it. As I sit here now, 5 years and change after the worst night of my life, I can tell you this: survival is a choice you make every single day. Not just physical survival, but emotional, spiritual survival. The choice to not let trauma define you. The choice to not let hate consume you. The choice to build something good from something horrible. That night in the basement, I thought my story was ending. I thought my daughter's love had turned to hate, and we would die in smoke and flames. But Devon had built an escape route, because he loved me and he loved Marlo enough to plan for the worst while hoping for the best. And that's what love really is, isn't it? It's not blind faith. It's not ignoring red flags. It's building escape routes while still keeping the door open. It's forgiving while maintaining boundaries. It's hoping for the best while preparing for the worst. Our family survived because Devon refused to give up on any of us, even when giving up would have been easier. We survived because we chose grace over rage, hope over despair, life over death. So if you're in a situation right now where someone you love is hurting you, manipulating you, putting you in danger, build your tunnel. Make your plan. Protect yourself. But if you can, leave the door open for redemption. Not theirs necessarily, but yours. Because hate is a fire that burns the one who holds it, and forgiveness is the water that puts it out. Thank you for listening to our story. Thank you for sticking with us through all the darkness. I hope it helps someone out there recognize the warning signs before it's too late. I hope it shows someone that change is possible, even from the deepest pit. And I hope it reminds everyone that families are complicated, messy, and sometimes broken. But they can also heal if everyone's willing to do the work. Now I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever had to forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Have you ever recognized manipulation in your own life or someone else's? Share your story if you're comfortable. I read every comment, and your experiences matter. Your voices matter. And if this story resonated with you, please share it. Not for me, but for that one person in your life who might need to hear it. The person who's dating someone who isolates them. The parent who feels like something's wrong but can't name it. The young person who feels like they'll never recover from their mistakes. This story is for all of us who've been broken and chose to heal. For all of us who've been betrayed and chose to forgive. For all of us who've faced the fire and decided to build something new from the ashes. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And remember, the greatest revenge against darkness isn't more darkness. It's becoming the light.